Okay, here we go. Texans defensive plan. 3 keys. This is D'Amico Ryans talking to Christian Harris before the series in which Christian Harris would get a pick 6 for a touchdown.
Right there and just play the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Play the quarterback. As soon as he snapped, step in front of it, go pick. Yes, sir. I'm telling you.
So there's Christian Harris, and this is him picking off that pass that D'Amico said would be there for him. I'm going to explain at the end of this exactly how that happened, and it's really cool. I actually feel kind of a little bit bad for Joe Flacco and how easily D'Amico gamed him on this. Like, for a guy who's 35 years old, he clearly, all of the film and tendencies that are out there on Joe Flacco are still valid. I feel like you could take film from 10 years ago and Joe Flacco is still making the same mistake, but it's really cool to see that D'Amico was dialed the hell in, and they set it up with the previous pick 6. That pick 6 was set up by the previous pick 6, so D'Amico knew exactly what was going to happen. 3 things. 1, just simply the pass rush. This is a much better pass rush over the second half of the season than it was in the first half of the season. And there's 3 elements to that. Derek Barnett, who I'm not going to show here, but Derek Barnett was brought in from the Eagles midway through the year, and he's just been awesome. And he just keeps getting better as we go along. But here's John Grenard versus Ronnie Stanley. Ronnie Stanley remains one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, and yet this year it's been ravaged by injuries. Like, he's been up, he's been down. This game, John Grenard had some really nice pass rushes where that's like he just put Stanley on skates. And Will Anderson on the left side really had a precocious beginning. Multiple pressures in this game, got held on this play, got a sack. And it was a nice coming out party for him. If you look at this offensive line, just an article after the Jaguars game, it kind of gave a great synopsis of what's been the issue. Ronnie Stanley's right knee looked shakier than ever as the left tackle battled pass rusher Josh Allen. Morgan Moses struggled against Trayvon Walker. The Ravens were careful with Stanley and Moses, giving each an offensive series off his feet, but they still struggled. So that's where they are right now. And I think just as it was last week, the pass rush was a strength of that team going against the Browns, who had their 4th and 5th options at offensive tackle. Ended up being a huge deal. That first pick 6 started with a Derek Barnett pass rush. It was beautiful. So, this is another matchup that I don't see being talked about a lot. The Texans edge rushers have gotten damn good in the second half of the season. And the Ravens offensive tackles are not as good as their name brand appeal. Second part, and this is going to be key, and this is what Dan Orlovsky touched on. And I appreciate it because he understands, and I can tell he's been watching the Texans the entire season, but the actual linebackers themselves. And they are, as it's been every week, the make or break element. Here's Dan Orlovsky on how those linebackers played in week 1 versus the Ravens.
Baltimore could not get to those linebackers for Houston. I thought Houston's inside linebackers versus Baltimore's run game were too quick. The diagnosis was too clear, and that's what led to so many short yardage games or even tackle for losses. Perryman was fantastic in this football game, and it'll be interesting to see how Baltimore tries and handle those guys, because that's been the story of Houston's season defensively. For Baltimore.
So what he's saying there, let me just be sure. Okay. All right. What Orlovsky is saying there about how that's been the story of the Texans defensively, I think if he had more time, he only had 60 seconds in this segment. I think if he had more time, what he would have meant to say was, it's been the story for better or for worse defensively is how the linebackers have played. Because there have been times where the linebackers have just been dialed in, and you could tell that their run pass keys were just on point. And you could tell that they knew exactly tendencies in the passing game, and it made all the difference in the world. They looked like trained assassins. There were other times, like in the Jets game, where it was really sloppy and really ugly, and the linebackers and the safeties also ended up being a huge issue. That's as it is every week with the Texans. That's really what matters this week is, okay, how dialed in are the linebackers? Andrews isn't going to play, but Isaiah likely will. But with the play action, the run game, all of that, they just, the team goes as they go. And I just feel like since the playoffs started, and I'll include the Colts in that. And I know you're going to say, well, Jonathan Taylor ran for like damn near 200 yards in that game. The backers were being super disciplined about not biting on play action, and I think the Texans were willing to concede that. I think there was a point early in the game where in that Colts game, Pittman got 3 catches very, very early on, short mid-range passes. And I know D'Amico's been having a hard time all season long getting the backers not to bite on play action. It looked to me like they were pretty much instructed, like, stay the hell back till you see the running back with the ball, then you come up and play. And they still could have played better, don't get me wrong, but it was the pass coverage they were more worried about. So they've been dialed in. They've been executing. Last week, especially, was much better than the week before. This week, that'll still be the big deal. Here's Orlovsky then talking about the third key to the game. And this all goes back to what D'Amico was telling Christian Harris early on.
Baltimore offensively, are you going to be ready for the certain and specific pressures that Houston's going to bring if you can get into those third down situations?
I agree with him there. So he's talking about getting into those specific situations. And I showed you that clip at the beginning where D'Amico had told Christian Harris, hey, just trust me, the pick six will be there. Okay, this is that pick six. That's Blake Cashman at the line of scrimmage showing blitz. And they're showing a single high safety here, man coverage across the board. That's important because on the previous pick six, the Texans had shown zone and then rotated to man, and then Blake Cashman blitzed. Here, one series later, they're showing blitz with Blake Cashman, showing man, and this is something the Texans have not done. This is the key element. The Texans have not rotated their safeties and disguised their coverages all that much this year because they were making so many damn mistakes all the time. I don't think D'Amico felt confident doing it, but they did it in this game. And what happens is at the snap, Blake Cashman's going to drop off into coverage. These two defensive backs are going to switch. They're going to go from showing man into a cover two invert, a zone defense. And because of that, because Flacco doesn't realize it, what he thinks is that Christian Harris is going to be manned up on this running back. And if he's manned up on that running back, then Flacco thinks, oh, I should be able to throw to the tight end. No big deal, right? And then what happens is he goes blind. He goes blind to Christian Harris, doesn't even see him. Here's D'Amico explaining to Christian Harris beforehand how it would all work out.
Hang right there and just play the quarterback. Play the quarterback. As soon as he snap, step in front of it, go pick. Yes, sir. I'm telling you.
Yeah. That's all. Just simple. Just a nice little pick six. So, it was really cool because I told the radio show this morning that I had a coach, Todd Grantham, who, he's been a coordinator since then. He was my defensive line coach. But Todd Grantham, I got him in my 6th year in the NFL. And all of a sudden it was like, he gave me the answers to the test. He taught me how to read stances, diagnose formations, understand tendencies. As a defensive lineman, he taught me how to understand how the coverages behind me affected me. And it was like a level of understanding of football that I didn't even know was possible. And I was a completely different player because I made tackles for a loss. I was a behind the line of scrimmage guy where I'd always kind of been a read and react guy before that. And it was all because I got the right coaching. And that's why I get really, really excited when you see Christian Harris accept this coaching from D'Amico Ryans, and you've seen the transformation in him from week 1 until now. This is another huge, huge, huge difference between week 1 and now. It's not just that everybody's gotten more comfortable in the defense or anything. It's that the D'Amico effect really took hold. D'Amico talking to these linebackers, D'Amico teaching Christian Harris. It's just much different now. And on the back end, they're disguising their coverages in a way that they really weren't doing even a few weeks ago. So that level of deception, that's a new wrinkle that there's very little film on. That's the part that if I were a Ravens fan, honestly, I'm not even trying to talk smack here, I'd be nervous about that, because as much as I will agree that Greg Roman was part of the problem with Lamar Jackson not rising to the occasion in the playoffs. But we still also haven't seen Lamar Jackson in the playoffs when teams are uber focused, dialed in, and they have an entire year's worth of film watching you, and can sometimes just find ways to flummox you. And right now, the Texans are kind of presenting a whole bunch of stuff that they don't have any film on them at all. So it's a big thing to watch. The Lamar Jackson's proclivity for turnovers, in terms of fumbling it, he's tied for fifth in fumbles this year in the NFL. It was more of a problem early on than it's been lately. But with a combination of the pass rush and disguised coverages, I think the Texans have a much bigger opportunity there, potential advantage than people realize. This is a different defense than it was even 4 or 5 weeks ago.